Alright, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles and elder bishops of Great Millstone, who will bring well, very beautifully. Double salutations to the Akim out here preaching the gospel in truth and sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is the brother Quana Watt from the Arizona Great Millstone Camp, coming back at you, Lord will, with the edifying lesson to the spirit and power, Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will, it is straight to the point. It's like hey man, so this is gonna be a quick lunchtime lesson, right? Prophecy watch. Brother has sent this into the chat, and this is heavy, man. Right? What this ultimately just shows you a World War III, is brewing heavy, right? There's been, skirmishes and wars, right, that have been popping off, the last 5, going on 6 years, right, with Russia, Ukraine, right, Israel, and over there in Palestine, America, with Iran, and so on and so forth, all the different, wars that have ultimately begun, right, the last few years, right, which is ultimately prophecy as well, right? We read in Matthew the 24th chapter, that there would be, wars and rumors of wars, which are a sign of the end of the world. And see how Shemiel Shah rose up men, right, that would be, prophecy watchers, right? They would ultimately be, in the scriptures, and ultimately looking at the different signs that we were given and filter those signs right through the scriptures, right, to give you an understanding of the times that we are in, and we are in the time of World War III. And I want to grab this, Ezekiel 3:17. It says, Son of man, I have made thee a watchman unto the house of Israel, which will be the prophets, right, which we believe, are the true prophets, Yahweh Shemiel Shah, beginning with the elder apostles of Great Millstone on down, right, as well as men that have, that come up maybe outside of Great Millstone that preach the same doctrine. Those are the true prophets of Yahweh Shemiel Shai today here on earth, again, giving you the understanding of the times that we are in, right? It says, therefore, hear the word of my mouth and give them warning from me. And that's exactly what's going on, right? This is a warning, that World War III is brewing, right? As you've seen right here on, BulgarianMilitary.com. It says, new Chinese non-nuclear bomb sparks global military concerns, right? China ultimately coming out with a new bomb, and this one, as we're going to read, is a heavy one, right? It says, in a controlled field test conducted by Chinese researchers, a 2-kilogram explosive device ignited a fireball exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, lasting over 2 seconds, 15 times longer than a comparable TNT blast. So it completely just outdoes any kind of TNT or an atomic bomb, right? It says, developed by the 707 Research Institute of the China State Shipbuilding Corporation, or the CSSC, a leader in underwater weapons system. This device, described as a non-nuclear hydrogen bomb, leverages a magnesium-based solid-state hydrogen storage material known as magnesium hydrate. So they created this, this weapon, right, of mass destruction, right? Which there's a reason for this, explosive, right, to be created, right? The Lord created, right, the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire. There's Isaiah 54 and verse 16. It says, behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire. And we use this, when speaking about, those ICBM nuclear missiles, but this can be, right, utilized for really any of these major, bombs and explosive devices that are used, right, militarily, right? It says, behold, I've created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, right, which are these scientists, right, these research scientists, right? It says, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work, and I have created the waster to destroy. And this is what this missile is for, right? It's to destroy. It says, the test detailed a peer-reviewed paper published in the Chinese language Journal of Projectiles, Rockets, Missiles, and Guidance. marks a significant technological leap for China's military capabilities, raising questions about its potential applications and the broader implications for global security. Right? China ain't playing, man. China's done right with America as well as other nations thinking that there's some type of weak a nation or a nation to be played with. Right? China ain't having that shit no more, man. We already see right how they're coming at America when dealing with this tariff war. And this again, this tariff war, right, could bleed into aiding and adding fuel to that fire when dealing with the World War III, right? It says concerning China just tested a hydrogen-based non-nuclear bomb. It used non-uranium or plutonium. It created a fireball over 1,000 degrees Celsius. It lasted 15 times longer than TNT, weighing at 200 or 2,000 kilograms, right? And we're gonna play this video. This is fair use, strictly for educational purposes. Fair use, right? It's real quick. Oh, cool. Here we go. Of course, it wouldn't want to play. Anyways, Salakia, man. It was supposed to start playing, but acting up. But it says, while the device does not rely on nuclear materials, its ability to generate sustained thermal damage positions it as a novel tool in modern warfare, prompting analysis to consider its role in China's strategic ambitions. Right? So this is, a huge move by China, right? Creating this non-nuclear, as it says, right, explosive device, right? This bomb, right? This hydrogen bomb, right? Which we understand, we're not ignorant, what's going on, man, right? Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Al Shah, we understand, right, why all these things are being, these nuclear bombs are being tested, right? America came out, with another, nuclear bomb, another, form of the ICBM nuclear missile, right? They came up with another version of it, right? You got China testing missiles, creating new missiles, North Korea doing the same thing. We understand that we're looking down the barrel of World War III, man. None of this is by coincidence, man. That all of a sudden, well, we understand Ecclesiastes 3:1. There's no matter of fact, let's grab it, man. Right, Ecclesiastes 3:1. It says, to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. So there's a reason why, right, Yahweh Shem El Shai is having these nations, creating these bombs. Why? They're to destroy, and they're to destroy who? Right? Mainly America, man. Again, you're going to have military skirmishes and military, fighting going on, right? But see, it's the peak of World War III is what we're waiting for, man. Right? Which we understand that that's not going to hit before, or until, Jacob's trouble, right, ultimately pops off, the mandatory implementation of the micro C-HIP, which is the RFID micro C-HIP, once that is, mandatory, then World War III is, ultimately going to pop off, and in that order, you know what I mean? So yeah, you're going to see more skirmishes happening, and you're going to see more wars and rumors of wars, ultimately take place leading up into that moment, because we're in the time of war. As we read in dropping down to verse 8, it says a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. And we're not in the time of peace, man. Right? We're in the time of war. This is why you see these nations getting ready, right? Preparing for this World War III that is to come. Let's go ahead and grab this. I only got a couple more precepts. This is Joel chapter 3 and verse 9. It says, proclaim ye this among the Gentiles, prepare war, right? This is what China, Russia, North Korea, right, as well as even all of the EU and NATO, right? They're preparing war, right? Russia talking about, possibly going to war with NATO. We know that America is not going to have NATO's back, or the EU's back, which is ultimately going to, again, lead to the prophecy of Revelations 17 and 16, right? The 10 horns, right? Hating the whore, right? With that whore being America, the 10 horns being the EU and the NATO, right? They're gonna hate the whore. They're gonna turn on America, man. You know, which we're already starting to see that, right? We're already starting to see the setting up of that prophecy, right? Just based off of that, how things are moving, right? How things are going, right? World War III it's here, right? It's already happening, right? We're just, again, we're waiting for the mandatory implementation of the micro CHIP, which is the mark of the beast, and then that's when the peak of World War III will ultimately happen, right? It says, wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears, right? Which is ultimately, plowshares and pruning hooks are ultimately tools for agriculture, right? And then you got swords and spears. So it's saying go from, focusing on your agriculture and, building your economy, sustaining your economy, to now you're focusing on military might. And this is why, Trump was ultimately trying to, basically force these countries, to pay more for defense spending, and you got more and more countries that are focused more on their military might, military power, right? Just based off of the times that we're in, right? We're in a time of war, so of course, right, that would take place, right? That they would focus more on their military might, so that way they're not being left behind, right? Being left, to the wolves, so to speak, right? It says, let the weak say I am strong. And we've been seeing this heavy, right? Iran has been flexing their missile arsenal, right? You got North Korea coming hard, Syria, Iran, all these different countries, man, coming up against America and the American regime, coming up against the West, right? And those who are allied with the West. We seeing it happen, man. These nations ain't playing no more, man. It says, verse 11, assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about it. This is what, where these wars and skirmishes are leading to, right? The valley of Yahweh Shaphat, the valley of decision, as you keep reading on down, in this chapter, right? Verse 14 says, multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Yahweh is near in the valley of decision, which again going into the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, where these nations are going to be, gathered together, right? And ultimately judged, by Yahweh Shai when he comes, which, Lord will, that'll be a lesson for another time, right? Yahweh Shai, destroying these nations and their armies. But it says, thither cause thy mighty ones, verse 11, thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. And this is, Yahweh B'Shem Shai start, sending down the angels to stir up the minds, of these rulers, right? As it says in Proverbs 21:1, right? The king's heart, right, meaning his mind, is in the hand of the Lord, and he turneth it whithersoever he will, right? Because the Lord is the one that's in control of everything that's happening right now, which is why we, ultimately, the title, the Most High, right? The Most High Yahweh, B'Hashem Yahweh Shai, right? Because there's none above Yahweh, right? And there's none above Yahweh Shai except for Yahweh, But that's all I wanted to grab, man. Just a quick little, lunchtime lesson, man. Prophecy watch, man. China got a new non-nuclear missile, right? Which is, stronger than, it's a hydrogen bomb, and it's stronger than, a TNT, hey, shit about to turn up, man. Lord will, it happens soon, But again, Lord will is edifying. Lord will, straight to the point. I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, B'Hashem, Yahweh Shai, B'Hashem, Rachak Wadash, that belongs to the elder apostles, elder bishops, the great millstone. Till next time, I say shalom.